And we're live. Hello, Glam readers. Tonight we are discussing John Green's Paper Towns, and I am in the middle of a storm. So if my voice sounds weird or I start echoing, I am sorry. It is thundering and lightning here, and that is just what's happening. So my feed may be a little bit in and out, but hopefully we'll get through this okay. Tonight we have a new icebreaker that is 5. Hello, Glam readers. Tonight we are discussing. Sorry. Oh, wait, was that you, Tabitha, or was that me? Paper Towns, and I am in the middle of a. Okay. I do that every time because it kicks in so late. All right, my watch room is off. Sorry about that. All right, what were we talking about? Oh, icebreaker. I have all kinds of things going on right now. It's like thundering, lightning. Tornado season, killing me. I'm a California girl, as I know about earthquakes. I don't know about these tornado things. So, our icebreaker for tonight is favorite summer reads. Oh my gosh. Sorry, the thunder. I guess I will go first. I have really been loving, I guess it's pronounced Liane Moriarty. Is that right, you guys? Liane Moriarty? Okay. I've been loving her book, The Hypnotist Love Story. It is a really fun, beachy read. I took it to Aruba, and yeah, I just thought it'd be fun to kind of go through some of Liane Moriarty's books since we are reading Big Little Lies in August, and yeah, I like to read an author's, like all of his or her work at once, so I thought that would be fun. I definitely recommend you checking out any of the Liane Moriarty books. They're all pretty good. I know, Katrina, you've read The Husband's Secret and you really liked it. I've read What Alice Forgot and I loved it. So yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with her books. Katrina, you want to chime in with your favorite summer read so far?
Yeah, a couple of summers ago I read everything by Kate Morton, who wrote The House at Riverton. Let me see what else. Let me Google it real quick. The Forgotten Garden, and The Secret Keeper, and The Distant Hours. So Kate Morton is my suggestion. They're a little bit lengthier than Moriarty's. I think a few of them are quite thick for even paperback, but they are really, really good. They're they all follow women as main characters, and they're mystery-esque, but not in a creepy mystery way. It's just like they discover things about their past or something like that. So I would definitely recommend anything by Kate Morton.
Hi guys. Well, my suggestion for summer read is Beautiful Disaster by Jamie McGuire. Relationship. It was, a love story, quick read. I don't have a summer favorite because I'm usually all over the place with what I read, but that's my suggestion because I thought it was, like a really quick read. It's not really long, it's quick, and it's just a nice love story.
So I don't know that I necessarily have a suggestion as much as mine is, like, I guess, a shameful secret. I tend to consume lots of bodice rippers in the summer. I do have rules about them, though. There can be no actual bodice ripping on the cover, but like cheesy romance novels, man, I just devour them in the summer, and it's ridiculous and embarrassing to admit, but that's my summer read every year.
Who are your favorite bodice ripping authors?
I really like Nora Roberts because it has to be like historical bodice ripping, like actual bodices, right? So I don't care about, like the modern day. I like the old, like 1800s and before, or even like 12th century and castles and, like nothing that's gonna happen in real life, and it's like bubblegum. Like you just, it's candy reading.
Okay, I was waiting for the thunder to subside because it sounds like a freight train is coming into my home right now. So if I get a tornado warning, you guys are going to have to moderate for me. So I want to say hi to the readers who have joined live now that we have done a little icebreaker and kind of waited for the live feed to catch up. Smart Aleki says it's 10 a.m. in Japan, so she is joining us from Japan. Oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher this name. It's Nevruz, and it is 3 a.m. in Denmark, which is really cool. Thank you guys so much for joining live, especially at 3 a.m. Chloe, thank you for joining from New Zealand. I guess it's 1 p.m. there, and you had a sick day, so you were able to join live. That is awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to have you guys. And on the same lines of book chatters joining live, we actually do have a couple spots open for book chatter. So if you would like to be a live book chatter in the future with Katrina, Tabitha, and Sarah, and myself, and Lauren is sick tonight, Miss Vicky B, it's her birthday, so if you have time, stop by Miss Vicky B's YouTube channel and wish her a very happy birthday. And Alexis will be back in the fall. So we have a couple spots open. If you can commit to the last Thursday of the month and put it in your planner and hang with us every Thursday, we would love to have you as a book chatter. So shoot me an email. It's lisamarie@paperandglam.com if you would like to join us. And with that, we will jump into Paper Towns. So Paper Towns this month is our book to movie read and our official read. John Green's Paper Towns, I think the release date was originally June 19th, and I think it got pushed out to actually yesterday. I think it came out yesterday, so I don't think any of us have had a chance to see it. If you have seen it, definitely leave us a comment and let us know what you thought of the movie. So our first question, as is every month, is how many stars, which kind of gives everyone an idea of how much we enjoyed the book and whether you should pick it up first thing. I would definitely say it's a 3-star book for me. I thought that it was John Green as I expected. It's very kind of similar emotional depth to Fault in Our Stars, but without quite the dramatic setting of The Fault in Our Stars, which is 2 teenagers who are both have cancer and could potentially lose their life to cancer. So obviously that was just a movie that made me just cry, and the book, I know a lot of people cried during. So he's really good at conveying emotional depth, so I would definitely give it a 3-star rating, almost a 4. I loved how he kind of took me back to high school, and I could kind of remember leaving high school for the first time, and the only time. You guess you only leave high school once, hopefully. And yeah, it really reminded me of that high school time. And yeah, I would say definitely a solid 3 stars, and John Green as I'd expect him to be. What do you think, Katrina?
I set myself up to really like it because I knew that you were liking it when you were reading it, but I hated it. I'm going to give it 1 star. I'm probably in the minority on this one, which is fine. I haven't seen the movie. I did watch the previews, and I wasn't loving the previews for it, and then the more that I read it, the more I didn't like it, and I wanted it to be over, and it took me super long to read it, where I would normally read a book like this in like 2 days or something, but it took me like 3 weeks. So I just wasn't into it. The characters didn't sit with me. I just kind of got frustrated with them, but I made my way through. So I would give it 1 star. I don't think John Green is my author. I've never read anything by him before. I have seen Fault in Our Stars. My husband loves his YouTube channel. And it's hit or miss for me. I like his brother much better, and his brother's from Montana, or lives in Montana, but side story. So I give it 1 star. I don't think it's my thing, but it'll be fun to talk about it.
Well, I went back and forth about what kind of rating I was going to give this book, because I kept going, I don't hate it, but I don't love it. I don't like it. It was just like, eh. So I was just going to say 2 stars because we're doing the stars, but it was so hard for me to try to figure out how many stars, because I felt like it was hard for me to kind of buy into some of the story, but then at the same time I was like, well, it's like, it's it's a story, so you know, you kind of say, okay, it's kind of just fantasy. It was so much that was annoying. I felt like Margot was annoying. I felt like I felt bad because I kind of like was hoping that when they found her, she was dead. That's really morbid for me, but I felt like, I don't know, I was just really annoyed by her character, and then I kind of got annoyed by Q, because I was just kind of like, dude, get over it. She's not even like, she doesn't care about you. Just forget about her. But then I was like, okay, well, I've read it, and I was trying to thinking about it from another perspective and say, well, maybe someone can relate to this, you know, coming of age, you know, having a crush kind of thing. But I just got so annoyed, so I couldn't give it all, and I couldn't give it the stars, just because of that annoying, and of course the ending, which I did not like the ending at all. I was just kind of like, huh? That's it? You're going to end it like that? Like, I don't understand. Like, I felt like I understood all of the other characters, but I never understood Margot and Q. I like when they came together at the end and they're talking, I'm just like, what are y'all talking about? I did not get it. So maybe it's over my head. I don't know, but it was really hard. I just kept getting so frustrated. But then at the same time, I would see some other aspects that, like, oh, okay, well, is he talking about death? Is he talking about, you know, when you leave forever? Is he trying to go deeper into something else? And maybe I'm not putting the pieces together. So I kept trying to find something else to redeem it. But I just can't go beyond 2. I can only give it two stars.
Yeah, I want to give it like a 1.5. I feel like the story overall maybe could have been a 2. I don't know, I really loved Fault in Our Stars, and this just didn't match up. I caught myself a couple of times just being like, okay, like I just want to know how it ends. I really wanted to know how it ended because of Tabitha's comment on Facebook, and so then I was like dying, like, oh my gosh, just be done. I'm ready for this book to be over. I want to know what Tabitha hated. I couldn't, I didn't, and I had to look. So I think it was written in 2008. I looked at some point while I was reading, and so I was trying to factor that in as well with some of like the annoying kind of hipstery things his friends were doing. And I really don't like authors, and I was trying to think, well, it's been 7 years, so maybe he's a little bit more educated now. But he used the R word several times in dialogue, and I get teenagers still do that, but I don't know. I guess I expect more from a published author, like, make your characters semi-intelligent. So that makes me want to give it like a 0, but 1.5, I guess.
Okay, in the comments we have a pretty good mix. Beth said, John Green writes in such a way that I always am drawn into his characters, even if I don't like the kind of people they are. I love how he writes them, and 5 stars. So I would agree with Beth. I love how he writes the characters, even if they're kind of annoying. Completely agree. I loved all the characters in The Fault in Our Stars. Agree, Q and Margot were kind of both a little bit annoying. I loved Radar, though. I thought he was hilarious with the collection of Black Santas. That was so funny. And Sarah, to backtrack, I almost don't want to ask this live on YouTube, so maybe if it's, I don't know what the R word is, and I'm sure other people won't know on here, so somebody write in the comments, because these comments on the live, okay, Katrina just told me, R word. Okay, now I know what it is. It's, yes, we shouldn't use the R word. Okay, I'm going to put it in the comments in case anyone else has that question, but those comments, the live comments, don't go on the actual YouTube video, so good to know. Yeah, we definitely had a mix. Again, lots of 2 stars, so I think, Tabitha, you nailed it. Chloe said it was 3 stars. Yeah, definitely not as strong as The Fault in Our Stars. I think we all agree. I think that we kind of want to talk ending based on the comments, and I know Tabitha and Sarah, you really want to talk ending. I don't know. I think it ended as I expected it to end, so you might have to unpack what you guys didn't like about the ending, because I really that's what I expected out of it. So I didn't have that like expectation hangover that I think you guys are experiencing. The one thing that is really common in the comments is that everyone hated how they skipped their graduation, which is close to the end, and I completely agree. They skipped their high school graduation. That's crazy. You only graduate from high school once, so that was like the one thing that I thought was a little bit ridiculous in the ending. But Tabitha, you want to unpack kind of what you didn't like about the ending?
I guess I felt like it was confusing. Like, so I was just like, okay, did she love him or didn't she? Like, and then I felt like even was like, okay, well then yeah, well I'll kiss her, and then he kisses her. I felt like it just like it's almost like it just fell off the cliff. Like what's the takeaway? She's gonna leave. She has to leave, and I still don't understand why she's leaving. Is that like, am I supposed to just assume that she's leaving because her family life is bad, or because the boyfriend cheated on her? Like why? I mean, she's left before, but why was this time the time? Like you're gonna just completely leave? Like I felt like it wasn't clear. I felt like they were just suggesting a bunch of stuff and never really actually said, hey, this is why I'm leaving. Like they made all the suggestions about Paper Town and, feeling like a paper person, and, people don't care about stuff that's real. And I don't know, I just felt like she was kind of all over the place. And I was just like, by the time it came down to them actually having a chance to talk to her, I'm just like, nobody really talked. Like, what's your deal? What's your deal? Like, why are you leaving? And what's going to be the whole point of him, like, trying to find her? Was it him trying to find himself? Like, I don't know, it just seems so, I don't know if they were, like, being very poetic or something. I don't know, but it just felt like it just was no closure. I just felt like, maybe that's the point, no closure, because that's not how life is. I don't know. But I felt like it just dropped off. It wasn't just a clear, like, I like an ending. I like an ending. I want to know, like, I don't know. I just felt like, okay, is that going to be your girl? You're going to talk to each other? You're going to have a long distance relationship? What are you guys going to do? I just felt I was displeased with that. I want an ending. I want to know what happens with them as, are they just friends? What's the deal? So I don't know. So I was really frustrated with that.
I'm with Lisa Marie on the ending. I feel like that's what I totally expected from the very, very first page. And the more that he developed Margot's character, and after I saw your post, because I wasn't done yet, I was like, okay, so how are they going to end it? And so I came up with these like different roadmaps in my mind of the different ways that I thought that he might end the book, and it ended just as I thought it would, because I feel like the rest of the book is so descriptive, yet it's so vague at the same time. It's not, it's never going to lead you to, that happy ending that you really want to have, Tabitha. Like, it's not going to get there because the characters are so who they are. I don't know if he developed Margot to have some sort of mental health whatever, if she's unique in that way, or if, if she is just finding herself and that's why she leaves, or any of that. I feel like he really set it up to be just kind of open at the end. And I also hated that they skipped high school graduation. The parents were like, yeah, we will come after you. Like, go for it. Go to this random place in New York. We don't care. Like, that was so weird for me. But I also, like Lisa Marie said earlier, I loved Radar. I thought he was the best character in the book. I loved everything that he was in. I love that they made him like a Wikipedia editor. I thought that was really funny. I really enjoyed that. I also thought Ben was pretty funny. I thought the relationship that the boys all had was really interesting to read about. But anyway, back to the ending. Yeah, I figured it would go that path, and I was fine with it.
Yeah, so Pocket Full of DIY had a really good comment. She said, all of John Green's novels have a girl who is broken or lost or sick or has some kind of baggage, and then there's a male character who wants to fix her or help her in some way. And this is a common theme in literature, but I didn't know that about John Green's books, and I think this may be our first read. And The Fault in Our Stars is a bit of an outlier, so that's good to know. Good perspective on kind of how he writes. I agree with what you said to an extent, Tabitha. I definitely felt like it was almost it like fell short of the depth that I think John Green wanted to achieve and almost like landed on melodramatic at certain parts. But some of it I really related to. I don't know. Leaving fascinates me and quote unquote pulling life out by the roots, as Q says, and I'm kind of jumping around. I hope you guys don't mind, but I think this is so central to the theme. But there's a quote on 234, page 234, if you're in the hardcover edition, and I loved this quote, and it's Q talking, and he says about Margot. Margot knows the secret of leaving. The secret I have only just now learned. Leaving feels good and pure only when you leave something important, something that mattered to you, pulling life out by the roots. But you can't do that until your life has grown roots. I just love that quote, and it was so relatable. I don't know if you guys have ever moved. I know, Katrina, you have, or kind of where your background is as far as like where you grew up and where you went to school, but I really related to that. That's so true. You know, it's so hard to leave, but then when you do, it's like, oh, it's like this feeling of freedom. I remember feeling that way when I left Napa, California, where I grew up, to move to Southern California to go to school, and I definitely felt that way when I moved to Denver. It's just like, oh, it's like a physical turning of the page and kind of a new chapter. And I could relate to how Margot really wanted that feeling of just to leave and have her life start. I definitely related to that in high school, just wanting to get the party started and kind of go out into the world. Does anybody else relate to that, or have you had a moment where you pulled life out by the roots, so to speak?
I mean, I totally do. Like you said, like I left Montana to go to school in Idaho, which wasn't that much of a jump, but then like finishing college and getting a job in Minnesota and just up and moving. Like my husband at the time, you know, we just did that. And it feels good, like you said, like it's totally turning over a new leaf. It's a total new beginning. It's hard, but it's something that everyone should do at one point in their life, I think, whether it's for a year, whether it's for a couple of months, like take a summer and go live somewhere else if you can, and go work some seasonal job somewhere touristy for fun or something like that. Like do something. I think it's really important because you learn so much about yourself. You learn what you can deal with, the different people that live in different parts of the country. You learn all those different things. And I relate to that with how Margot was feeling. I think my frustration, I don't know that I'm frustrated with how John Green writes in this book. I like his voice. I just wish that it was clearer how she was feeling when she left. But I get why that wasn't given at the time, but I feel like that could have been a really good, more like hit you in the face lesson in the book than it actually was, more like covered up and within the poem and the conversation at the end. I just wish it was a little bit more to the forefront.
Okay, I want to chime in though, because I think she kind of talked about part of the reason she was leaving was falling into that trap of who she was and the partying and like the, you know, her shallow friends and being what her parents expected of her, and that's not what she wanted. And, you know, I mean, what is that? You know, I feel like I've read somewhere else where they talk about how, you know, removing yourself from a setting or going back, like, you know, you've grown up, moved out of your parents' house, but then when you go back and stay with your parents for the weekend, like you turn into a cantankerous 16-year-old again. Like you're annoyed with what your mom is telling you to do, and you're lounging on the couch, surfing TV, and like eating your way through the fridge, you know, stuff like that. So I think part of her leaving was, you know, like a fresh start, and then like just cutting all of those ties so that she didn't fall back into that pattern. I mean, I guess that was kind of my takeaway, was that she, you know, realized that she was becoming the person she didn't want to be and wanted to kind of remove herself from that. I don't know. I wasn't mad at the end. I don't know that I was expecting it, but I thought it was okay.
I was kind of thinking that the twist might be that Margot was all made up. Like she was an entire imaginary character, and it was just like a thing in Q's head, and like, or it was a dream, or if it was something like that. The beginning just totally had me thinking that was going to be the twist at the end, like everybody gets a miracle, like all this stuff. Like I just thought it was, I'm not like an imaginary friend, but that it was just a fictional story that he had just thought And your comment made me think about that, Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to read the quote that is the title quote that is around what Margot was saying about the paper towns. It's on page 57, and it says, here's what's not beautiful about, she's talking about Orlando, her hometown, and they're looking down over Orlando if you haven't read the book, and she said, from here you can't see the rust or the cracked paint or whatever, but you can tell what the place really is. You see how fake it all is. It's not even hard to be made out of plastic. It's a paper town. I mean, look at it. Look at all those cul-de-sacs, those streets that turn in on themselves, and the houses. They were built to fall apart. All those paper people living in their paper houses, burning the future to stay warm. All the paper kids drinking beer some bum bought for them at the paper convenience store. Everyone demented with the mania of owning things. All the things paper thin and paper frail, and all the people too. I've lived here for 18 years, and I have never once in my life come across anyone who cares about anything that matters. So it is a very, very, what's the word? Angsty, I guess. Angsty teenager way of looking at it. But I also could really relate to that. I don't know about you guys, but just growing up in a really small town and, you know, knowing people who had been there their whole life and were really wrapped up in kind of the town. It was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get out of here. This town is like too small to hold me. So I could kind of relate to it in a certain point, but like Sarah said, it's like you just want to, sometimes you feel like you have to leave to become a different person, and I could definitely relate to that. I definitely wanted to get out of my small town and go out into the world, and I don't know, I could relate to that. Could you guys?
Yeah. Yeah, I could relate to it. That was the quote that I actually chose, the one you just read, because I grew up in a small town also, but I haven't, I'm still here. I mean, I'm only a couple of towns away, but, you know, growing up, you did feel like, oh man, I have to get away from here. But I never had that, you know, experience as far as like that physical move. Like I said, you know, going away to college was that experience, and it was great. But I still stayed in the same state. So, you know, not too far away, only 2 hours, but just that small amount of getting away does make you feel like you can actually be who you feel like you are. Because sometimes when you stay somewhere, you can only be the way people around you see you. So maybe if you want to be a different person, or you've developed or grown into a different person, people might still want to hold you back and keep you in that particular viewpoint that they saw you at one time. So I feel that way, like as like from a spiritual move. It's like once I decided that I was going to live for Christ, then that was a different moving. Like I changed friends, I changed, you know, everything that I used to do I no longer did, and so now it's like people, you know, you're just kind of like, that feels so great. It feels so great to be who you feel like you are authentically without someone else saying, oh, well, this is who you used to be. And then you're like, well, no, this is where I am now. And if I want to develop and grow in another area, I have the liberty to do that. So sometimes you have to be willing to, like they said, pull up those roots and start over. So I really like some of the themes that were throughout the book. Like I like how he weaved in the concept of a paper town, and Margot, and how she felt like she had to leave, and how it was this massive road trip to go and find her. And so I thought that was clever as far as like, you know, using the title, and it was a main aspect of the book, and like the theme throughout the book. So like I said, that's why I had a hard time with the rating, because I was like, I can pull something from it, but there was just so many frustrating parts that, you know, that I just kind of wish that it was kind of like, tied up in a little bow and and nicely presented, instead of just being so, I don't know, I guess maybe he wanted it to be that way for discussion's sake. But there's definitely a lot of themes about, because even the theme about death, I felt like there was a theme of death kind of in and out. You can think about that as leaving, like when we actually leave this earth, what do we leave behind? I don't know. With them finding the dead body in the beginning. So I could see like a bunch of different things that was weaved in, but but it was too many. Like they didn't all connect. So I don't know if he wants us to make the connection, and if so, that's fine. But that's still hard for me because I like a story that's really tight, like that ends and it's all put together, and you're like, oh, great.
Yeah, Sarah, if you don't mind sharing, what's kind of your background? Have you ever left somewhere and then come back, or anything similar?
I have not. I mean, it's interesting. I guess, it was it was really inspiring to me in that way. I mean, because, well, I live 45 minutes from the town I grew up in. I mean, so I kind of moved away, but not like pull up roots. And the place I've worked at since I was 15, and it's, people that, I work with people that I've known since I was a child. So there's that, like fitting into that mold and those expectations that people have for you, is really a common theme for me. I'd sometimes daydream about like just moving across the country, because I can't ever, people who have known me since I was 10 have a certain expectation of, how I'm going to react to things and how I'm going to behave, and it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you just you act the way people expect you to act, because it's kind of lunacy to all of a sudden just one day be a completely different person, even if that's how you feel. You kind of have to make that, like, rip up life by the roots and, make that change and be a different person. I guess that, some people grant you room for like gradual change, but it's like that, like, wait a minute, and I still, get that, like, wait a minute, you're not 10 anymore. Like, no, you're up a little bit, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I've, nope, never pulled up roots. I'm just here in the same state I grew up in, 45 minutes from home.
And that fascinates me too, because as you guys know, I'm really big into community. So I love the idea of building a community and building a life around, a town, and really being able to make a difference and feel like you know the people that you live around, like know your neighbors. I just love that. I love that idea and kind of way of doing life, and it's something I didn't experience in California. I can definitely relate to what Tabitha said too. When I moved to Denver, I was really, really burned out on Southern California. If you're new to my channel or you're new to my story, I moved from Southern California to Denver, like I mentioned earlier, and so California, especially Southern California, is very image-based. It's very, people like to fit into a certain mold, and I was just so burnt out on just the whole thing. I can't even like put it into words and articulate it for you guys right now, but I just could not wait to start over and, like Tabitha said, build a new identity based on who I wanted to be and the values that I believed in, and not be influenced by anything else. So I definitely can relate to that, Tabitha, and can relate to Margot. I feel like, especially as a bit of an introvert, I'm kind of on the line between an introvert and extrovert. It kind of depends what setting I'm in, but I can kind of relate to Margot wanting to have those angsty years where you just like sit and write. That was definitely part of my story, and just figuring it out. And as a kind of wannabe writer, I definitely can see like going somewhere quiet and just writing and figuring out who you want and where you want to go next, and all of that. So yeah, I love that too, Tabitha, and especially, thinking about living for Christ. Before I moved to Denver, I had a few friends who were really strong Christians, and that was great. But moving to a new town and not knowing anyone, and needing to find that Christian community and all of that really helped me grow in Christ and figure out who God made me to be. And I think sometimes it's hard to figure that out in the shadow of who you've always been. So I appreciated that element of this book for sure. Let's see.
So another one of my favorite quotes was mentioned in the chat, the live chat a little bit. Let me scroll back and find. I think it's pretty much the same one. Beth said it. What a treacherous thing to believe that a person is more than a person. And I think mine's super similar, if not on the same page. In the paperback, it's on page 199, and it's at the top of the page, but he's talking about how I could not imagine her as a person who could feel fear, who could feel isolated in a room full of people, who could be shy about a record collection because it was too personal, someone who might read travel books, on and on. And earlier, let me find it real quick. He did actually imagine hers or previous imaginings and that sort of stuff. So that's the one that like I saved and really stayed with me, because it really just, because you think about it, I don't know if I'm strange and just think about this, but when you're looking at somebody, like I'm looking at you three, like there's a person in there, like who knows what you're thinking, who knows, like just like I am. It's a weird little trap I get my head in sometimes, but I feel like that's really what he's talking about, is that you only really know yourself. You don't know anybody else, and you never will. Like I will never really know like my husband or my parents or my good friends, because you're not in their heads. You don't know those little tics that they have. I just really liked that part. What were you gonna say, Lisa Marie?
Oh, I was just going to mention while you were finding the quote that the page numbers are the same in the paperback and the hardback, which is good. That's all I was going to say.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
So we can kind of shift and take Katrina's lead and shift into favorite quotes. Definitely agree with what you said, Katrina. I think we can, and this was also echoed in the comments, that we can make people into larger than life people, for sure. Did you guys already do your favorite quotes and I missed it? Tab, I think you did.
Okay. No, I said that my favorite quote was the same quote you already read.
Oh, that's right.
But I also have a favorite scene, which was when he got the minivan for a graduation present. I thought that was hilarious. And my favorite character was Radar. And I liked the whole aspect of, the Black Santas and just him being a smart and dedicated friend. Like I laughed out loud a lot just from their conversations with each other. But those were the only three because my quote was the same quote that you'd already shared.
Yeah, I thought the imagery was great. Like you were just saying, like I could totally see that when he's talking about in the van with like the first bedroom and the second bedroom and the office and the kitchen. Like that was really cool. That was a great scene. Like I could totally see that. I could see the beer in the cooler in the back and everything that they described in that mall. I could really see. So the imagery writing for me was probably my favorite part of the book. It wasn't too much for me. It wasn't too little. It was good.
Good point. Yeah, this kind of question is, what was your favorite scene or character or quote? You can kind of pick whatever you want, and I definitely agree. I would say my favorite quote, I'm kind of torn. I guess I would have to say my favorite quote is on page 227 when they're talking about, Q's talking about leaving high school and kind of those times when you're like, wow, this is the last time I'm going to do this, whether you're quitting a job or you're leaving school or you're leaving a town, and I just really related to this. It was hard not to walk around thinking about all the lastness of it all. The last time I stayed in a circle outside the band room in the shade of this oak tree that has protected generations of band geeks. The last time I ate pizza in the cafeteria, and then it goes on. And he says, on the last day, the bad days become so difficult to recall because one way or another, she has made a life here, just as I had, and this is Margot. The town was paper, but the memories were not. All the things I'd done here, all the love and pity and compassion and violence and spite kept welling up inside me. Even if you want to leave, it's so, so hard. And this was the first time in my life that so many things would never happen again. As paralyzing and upsetting as all the never-agains were, the final leaving felt perfect, pure, the most distilled possible form of liberation. It's so hard to leave until you leave, and then it is the easiest goddamn thing in the world. Leaving feels too good once you leave. Can you guys relate to that? Just lots of, any like lastness moments?
Like, I think that's nice. See, and that's why I kept having such a hard time, because I felt like there was really like some really nice snippets, and and nice things that you could think about. And I think that's why I kept getting frustrated because I don't know, there was so much. It could have been so great. Like I don't know. It's kind of bittersweet for me because I don't know. I'm not that I'm not going to read anything else from this author. I believe I will, but like definitely some beautiful moments, even some other things that I have questions about. Like I have questions about why did he choose some of the books that he referenced, like referencing Moby Dick and the poem, what was it, Whitman? Yeah, the Walt Whitman, and he also talked about her reading the Bell Jar. So I'm just like, okay, were those just some random books he just, or is there some kind of reference there that he's trying to make about the characters or about the story? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't know what I think, but what you were just talking about made me think that this would be a good, like, book for a class to read, like even if it's like a high school English class and then have to write like a few prompts on it, because all those questions that you're bringing up are such good discussion questions. And I mean, it's great for book club, but I don't know the answer to them, you know what I mean? And I think it's because I didn't read it close enough, because I was so frustrated with, I don't even know the characters, and just, but I liked how it was written at the same time. I just think that it so wasn't my speed that I didn't want to slow down and really like examine those things. And then I think in the Facebook group somebody had mentioned that he switches between past and present tense quite quickly, and I was like, I finished the book and I didn't even notice. Like, am I not reading it closely enough? And so part of me feels like I should pick it back up in a couple of months and reread it slowly to really like think about all those things that you're questioning, Tabitha, like why he picked those certain references and why did he pick Orlando? You know, does he have a personal connection to Orlando? Is there something about SeaWorld? Like, what made him think about, I think he writes in the back like why he did the bit on paper towns in the acknowledgments bit, in the author's note.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was interesting to me. So a conversation with him about it would be interesting. I just didn't want to take the time to think about it, which is strange because I feel like now I'm feeling like I liked it more, but I didn't, and I'm trying to remember why I didn't, and that's becoming quite difficult. But I don't think it was for me, but I liked how he wrote, and I liked that he isn't full out clear on everything, but it just, I don't know. I'm not answering your questions. I'm sorry.
No, I felt the same way, and I actually did take time to slow down and think about, he ties in Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass, and I did really try to sit down and take it in, and I feel like I was able to get the emotional depth out of it that he was writing. I mean, John Green's an incredible writer, period. I mean, he can write so well. Whether you love the plot or you love the character is a different story, but, unequivocally, he's a great writer. But I kind of felt like a lot of it was a little bit over my head, too, and I really tried to stop in and unpack it because I read this book really early because I wanted, just with being on vacation, I wanted to make sure that I had some cohesive thoughts on it. And, yeah, I kind of struggled to get my head around it, too, Katrina. I feel like it just... Yeah, I almost need like cliff notes to accompany. I wanted to almost do some research online.
I know, and I feel like I'm smart enough to be able to unpack this. Like, I did well in school and in English. Like, I should be okay doing this. And it was just frustrating that it was like, I just don't want to slow down. I'm glad you did, though, but it's funny that it still, like, couldn't unpack all of it. Sarah, did you unpack it at all, or was it just kind of like, whatever? Do you know why all of Tabitha's questions aren't answered?
I have no clue. I mean, yeah, I did. I felt like it was beyond my depth, and I totally think I'm a smart person as well, but I was like, ugh, this is beyond me. It made me think, like, I'm going to add those books to my, like, to read list because I feel like I need to read them to understand, like, the reasoning behind it. I suppose I probably could just Google it and maybe have an answer. Like, Google seems to know everything. It's way smarter than I am, so I may have to do that. And I had a favorite quote that I wanted to share. It's on page 301. It's near the bottom. It says, if you choose, you have to be careful which metaphor you choose because it matters. If you choose the strings, then you're imagining a world in which you can become irreparably broken. If you choose the grass, you're saying that we are all infinitely interconnected, that we can use these root systems not only to understand one another, but to become one another. The metaphors have implications. I just really liked that. I liked the interconnected bit, you know, and because she seemed a little, I mean, and that's like right towards the end, and you know, him trying to kind of convince her to come back, and but I liked that, and I mean, maybe that's because I'm a roots girl. I've not really pulled up the roots, so I really identified with that interconnectedness, and you know, depending on your support system and all of that, and really the implications of you know, cutting the strings and allowing yourself to be irreparably broken. I mean, and I think we've kind of had that theme, like, you know, some of the books that we've read thus far, you know, with, you know, people overcoming tragedy and trials and stuff, and like, you know, picking themselves up and trying again. So I liked it.
Yeah, I really like that quote too. Interconnectedness fascinates me just because of the idea of community and, you know, living like we're all interconnected. And that's definitely something that Jesus talked a lot about, and how the early Christian community was like a family. And the Bible talks a lot about, you know, if one person had a burden, it was like everyone had a burden. And I just think that's such an incredible image for the way that we were created to live. So I love that quote too, Sarah. And yeah, I definitely... Leaves of Grass is a book. I actually have this beautiful pink copy of Leaves of Grass on my Amazon wish list. I'll have to find it and link it below. But I've been wanting to read that because it's just such a beautiful image of life and community. Did you, Katrina, Tabitha, did you relate more to the strings or the grass?
I'm sorry. I don't know.
That's all right. You can take a pass.
Yeah, I have to pass on that.
That's all right.
I don't know either. At that point, I was skimming it, and now, Sarah, when you read it aloud, I was like, oh, crap. Like, I need to, like, go back and, like, sit with this paragraph, because I loved it when you read it aloud, but I totally just skimmed over it at the end, so I don't know what I am. I would have to read it again, which I am doing. I don't think I'm either.
That's okay.
Other metaphor altogether.
Well, we can move on. Chloe has a really good thought. She wanted to talk about the element of seizing the day and how they missed graduation, and Quentin missing high school parties to find Margot, and just also talking about, after that, the dead body, the symbolism of the dead body in the beginning. So let's take the seize the day piece first, because I actually have that marked because I loved that quote. So it's on page 70, and Mario's talking to Quentin, and she says, Q, you're going to Duke. You're going to be a very successful lawyer or something, and get married and have babies and live your whole life, and then you're going to die, and in your last moments, when you're choking on your own bile in the nursing home, you'll say to yourself, well, I wasted my whole goddamn life, but at least I broke into SeaWorld with Margot Roth Spiegelman my senior year of high school. At least I carped that one diem. And I loved that. That was such a good kind of just speech on Margot's behalf. And this kind of ties into one of our last questions, which is, what did you take away from the book, and, you know, what are you going to remember? And that was definitely going to be my one of what I was going to remember, you know. Carpe diem, carpe the glam out of that diem. That's what I tell myself, and I just love that little pep talk she gave Q. Did you guys?
I did, and I thought it was good, and like how in the comments, sorry, Chloe said like they missed their high school graduation to do, like, go find her and stuff. And that's when it really, like, it brings to the point, like, what we've talked about in previous book clubs, like, what they chose to do to seize the day is totally different than what I would have done, but that's cool that that's what they did. You know, like, I would have gone to graduation, but if I had been in that situation, you know, would I have gone? Like, if one of my friends was missing and I had 24 hours to go and find him or her, would I leave to go do that? I don't know what I would do. You know, it's one of those things. I'm just not Sure, but I think I found the death answer. So once we get back to that, I think I have it.
Awesome. Any other thoughts, Sarah, Tabitha, or anyone in the comments about seizing the day? Carpe that diem.
Well, for my takeaway was different. Do you still want me to share that?
Sure.
Um, so my takeaway was not to get caught up in the fantasy of a person, because I felt like that's what Q did with Margot, and then Margot revealed that that's what she did when she was writing the stories that included him in the end. So my takeaway was like, that something can always appear to be in your head, this fantasy, when we think about people, even if it's someone, let's say it's someone that's really successful, or someone that you really look up to, like, just not to get caught up in fantasy, because everyone is real. Like, there's a person that there's something that they're struggling with, or there's something that they don't have perfect. And I think that if we realize that, like, just not that is the reality that we need to keep us grounded, to just not get so caught up in fantasy. I think fantasy is great, like you said, if you watch a movie, or you're in a book, but when it comes to your life, to realize the reality that that's not, not to look at people that way. And I think that that was the eye-opening thing, that as he was searching himself and all these ideas that he had about Margot, that he came to the realization of, hey, thinking about her in another light, like, took away some of the fantasy. So I don't know, I really like that aspect of, thinking about the characters, because I think that if we were to apply that to our own lives, then maybe we wouldn't be so hard on ourselves. Like, whatever the fantasy might be, even if it's, how we're surrounded by fantasies because we're Americans. So, even if it's like, the perfect family, or, the perfect mom, or whatever they're showing you on TV, or this is how your life should be, that's fantasy, people, just come back to reality. So that was my takeaway from the book, because of the whole, like, how he just thought that she was so awesome and so untouchable, and here she is, and she's really broken. So, but that was my takeaway.
That was a good one. Any last thoughts on, like, seizing the day before we move to the dead body piece? Okay, yeah, I completely agree with what you said, Tabitha, and I want to tie in something that iCookie said to the death theme. She said, she referenced a quote on page 149, which was peppered throughout the novel, as she said, and it was, "You will go to the paper towns and you will never come back." So I was wondering if we could kind of juxtapose that with the death theme, or I know, Katrina, you have something on the tip of your tongue, so take it away.
Yeah, so mine is page 300. It's pretty much the whole page. They're talking, it's when they start digging. After they took that nap, they start digging those graves, and they talk about Robert Joyner. But farther down on the page, Margot says, "I never really thought of him as a real person. He was something that happened to me, but before this, he was a minor figure in the drama of my life, but the central figure in the drama of his own life." And Q says, "I have never really thought of him as a person either." So I think it comes back to what Tabitha was just talking about the fantasy of people being other people, and I think that's why that death exists in the beginning, because it brings back those paper towns and the paper people, like we just talked about, as just, you may read an obituary in the paper, and it's literally a piece of paper that you read, like, a death on it, and it means nothing to you, but it could mean everything to a handful of other people, and I think that's exactly why the death theme goes through the book.
Yeah, I really liked the beginning when they were telling the stories of Margot, and, like, all the kind of cool things that she used to do. I loved how they built her into this larger than life person, to kind of unpack her and see how flawed she was and how she was figuring it out, because I think we're all fascinated by people that seem like they have it all figured out, right? Especially in high school, you can kind of relate to this. I loved how, you guys will have to remind me some of the anecdotes, but I know one was, she convinced the bouncers at a concert that she was, like, the drummer's boyfriend or something, and then she ended up, like sneaking into the concert, and she breaks into these amusement parks, and she's just like so cool and calm and collected, and does all these cool things. I loved how they kind of built her into this high school person that was kind of not invincible, but just kind of like owned the show. I love that. And then kind of backtracked to where she's like in some abandoned building being all hipstery and like scrawling in her notebook. I loved that piece too. What do you guys think? Any more thoughts on the death theme Katrina unpacked for us, or anyone in the comments? All right. Well, that was all of our questions. The only one that we didn't quite go full circle on, and feel free to just chime in if you have something, is what takeaway can we apply to our current lives from the book? Anything?
Sorry, guys.
I'm okay.
Be the same as just other people and their lives different from yours, and they all look to be paper on the screen, but they're not.
Yeah. All right. Well, we might have. Is that a wrap for this book chat, or do you want to talk books to movie reads, or Far from the Madding Crowd? Did anyone see that? Our classic. Sarah, you saw it?
Yeah, I saw the movie.
Yeah, it was good.
Is it?
Yeah, I liked it.
All right. Well, we have our classic chat is July 22nd, I believe. So we'll be talking about, that'll be our next book club, is The Far from the Madding Crowd. And next month, I did see a question in the comments about what we are reading in July. So the full list for the year is up on Goodreads, and it's up. There's free printables in Glam Shop. But next month, we're reading Netflix. Oh no, do I sound like a demon? Oh no! Do you guys want to go over this if I sound weird? Any takers? Sorry, you guys, I'm having a storm, so apparently I sound like a demon now. Darn.
Oh, yeah, we have a storm here also.
Okay, Katrina says I'm better, so I'm going to continue with my spiel. So next month we're reading Emily Griffin's The One and Only, and just talking about, or going through some more kind of lighter chick lit reads. So this is our official read that we'll be talking about the last Thursday of the month. And then our book to movie read is Peter Pan. There is a movie coming out, I think, next week, which is a live-action version of Peter Pan, which will be really exciting. I actually just bought both of these on Audible today, so there is a link for 2 free audiobooks in the description bar if you guys want to try listening to our reads on Audible, which I know a lot of us do for the classics, and just to kind of get in a little more reading. And yeah, I think that may be a wrap. Remember, if you do want to be a book chatter and you're watching this in the semi-near future, definitely shoot me an email, and I'd love to have you join live. We need a couple more book chatters to round out our crowd for when people have other engagements or emergencies. So that would be great. And any last final thoughts, book chatters? Going once, going twice. All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining, and thank you, book chatters, for donating your last Thursday of the month, and we will see you next month for Emily Griffin's The One and Only. See you next time.